Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Dandot Pranam. Welcome to Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya. Today we are very happy to have the association of His Grace Sankarshan Priya Prabhuji. He will be sharing Bhagavad Gita from 4th Canto, 29 chapter verses 36 and 37. The chapter is titled Talks Between Narada and King Prachina Bharsi. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna devotees. I will do small kirtan and then we can start the session. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Prajana Ranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Prajana Ranjana, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Pranam Sankirtan ki jai. Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So I would request all of your immense blessings and prayers so that I can speak in the line of Sampradaya without diluting the philosophy, without self-glorifying myself, and ultimately please the Guru Parampara. So I seek your blessings and prayers. I'm not qualified to even sit in the Vyasasana, but as in the matter of spirit of serving the movement and also Srila Prabhupada and his disciples, I have taken up this seva. So I have heard the lectures of Srila Prabhupada, his disciples and grand disciples. So whatever you find that is useful, all the glories to them. And if you find any defects or if any corrections, it's all attributed to my deficiency in understanding the philosophy and principle. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurom Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhobhyayev च पतितनाम पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रष्टाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे राम 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 हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे राम 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 हरे Hare Krishna devotees, once again, welcome to Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya and my prostrated obeisances to all the assembled devotees here and sincerely seek your blessings and prayers. So we would be reciting the slokas from Canto 4, chapter number 29, sloka number 36 and 37. Prabhuji, can we go on to the sloka? Atatmano artha bhutasya yato narta parampara samsritistad vyavachedho bhaktya paramayo guru Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Samahitah Sadricinena Vairagya Jnanam Cha Janayishyati. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I would also recite the word by word translation. It's very interesting. Atha, therefore, Atmanaha of the living entity, Artha Bhutasya, having his real interest, Yataha, from which, Anartha, of all unwanted things, Parampara, a series one after another, Samsritihi, material existence, Tat, of that, Vyavacheda, stopping, Bhaktya, by devotional service, Paramaya, unalloyed, Gurau, unto the Supreme Lord or his representative, Vasudeve, Vasudeva, Bhagavati, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, Samahitaha, applied, Sadrichinena, completely, Sadrichinena, completely, Vairagyam, detachment, Jnanam, full knowledge, Cha, and Janayishyati, will cause to become manifest. Translation: the real interest of the living entity is to get out of the nescience that causes him to endure repeated birth and death. The only remedy is to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his representative. Unless one renders devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, one cannot possibly become completely detached from this material world, nor can he possibly manifest real knowledge. Purport. This is the way to become detached from the artificial material condition. The only remedy is to take to Krishna consciousness and constantly engage in the devotional service of Lord Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone is trying to be happy, and the process adapted to achieve the process adapted to achieve that happiness is called self-interest. Unfortunately, the conditioned soul hovering within this material world does not know that his ultimate goal of self-interest is Vasudeva. Samsruti, or material existence, begins with the illusion bodily conception of life, and on the basis of this conception, there ensues a series of unwanted things, anarthas. These unwanted things are actually mental desires for various types of sense gratification. In this way, one accepts different types of bodies within this material world. One first has to control the mind so that the desires of the mind can be purified. This process is described in Narada Pancharatra as Sarvopada Vinirmuktam Tatparatvena Nirmalam. Unless one purifies his mind, there is no question of getting free from the material condition. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.6, Anartopashamam Sakshad Bhakti Yogam Adokshaje Lokashya Janato Vidvams Chakre Satvata Samhitam. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by linking the process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. Anarthas, unwanted things, come down from one bodily life to another. To get out of this entanglement, one has to take to the devotional service of the Lord Vasudeva Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word Guru is significant in this connection. The word Guru may be translated as heavy or the supreme. In other words, the Guru is the spiritual master. Sri Rishabhadeva advised his sons, Guruna Sasyat na mochayet ya samupate mrityum. One should not take up the post of spiritual master unless he is able to lead his disciples from the cycle of birth and death. Bhagavad Gita 5.5.18. Material existence is actually a chain of action and reaction brought about by different types of fruitive activities. This is the cause of birth and death. One can stop this process only by engaging oneself in the service of Vasudeva. Bhakti refers to those activities performed in the service of Lord Vasudeva, because Lord Vasudeva is the supreme one should engage oneself in his service, not in the service of demigods. Devotional service begins from the neophyte stage, the stage of observing the rules and regulations, and extends to the point of spontaneous loving service to the Lord. The purpose of all stages is to satisfy Lord Vasudeva. When one is perfectly advanced in the devotional service of Vasudeva, one becomes completely detached from the service of the body, that is, his designated position in the material existence. After becoming so detached, one becomes actually perfect in the knowledge and engaged perfectly in the service of Lord Vasudeva. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Jivera Swarupa Haya Krishna Nitya Dasa. Every living entity is, by constitutional position, an eternal servant of Krishna. As soon as one engages in the service of Lord Vasudeva, he attains his normal constitutional position. This position is called liberated stage. Muktir hi vanyata rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. In the liberated stage, one is situated in his original Krishna conscious position. He gives up all engagements in the service of matter, engagements concocted under the names of social service, national service, community service, dark service, automobile service, and so on, and so many other services conducted on the illusion of I and mine. As explained in the second chapter of first canto, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitah Janayatyasu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayat Ahaitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires costless knowledge and detachment from the world. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.7. Thus, one must engage in the service of Vasudeva without material desires, mental speculation, or fruitive activity. It's a little long purport, but it's really wonderful purport. So, in the last few weeks, I just want to set the background and context. The last few weeks, we have seen that Narada Muni was preaching to Prachina Barhisat indirectly by through a allegorical story, because Prachina Barhisat was fully engrossed in fruitive activities, though his sons Prachetas were fully engaged in the devotional service. So Narada Muni was so compassionate, so he wanted to deliver him. So on his own will, he came and he started preaching Prachina Barhisat. So through allegorical story, he explained the complete situation of a conditioned soul and what is the way to get out of that. But Prachina Barhisat was very honest, and he expressed his lack of understanding, that he mentioned that he was able to understand something, but he could not completely understand the real message. So he requested Narada Muni to explain to him again. So that is here we have a perfect disciple who is very honest with his spiritual master. When he is not able to understand, he posts the sincere query, and then Narada Muni, being a perfect spiritual master, explains again. But this time he actually gives the message directly. So in the beginning, when he sees that Prachina Barhisat was not ready, so he was preaching him indirectly. But when he was cultivated adequately, now Narada Muni shifts the gear and he actually starts explaining the message directly. So actually, whatever we see in this chapter, it's actually repetition, but Narada Muni is actually bluntly putting forward the message directly to him, so that this message reaches Prachina Barhisat, so that he get transformed. So that's the context here. So in the last few days, our senior devotees, they have been explaining the nature of the conditioned souls, how they are struck in this material world, what are all the activities they are engaged in, how they are going through the old age. So they explain all those details. So in this specific sloka, Srila Prabhupada has beautifully explained the solution. So in the last few slokas, Narada Muni was actually explaining the problems of this material world. What are all the problems one has to go through? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, and what are all the different difficulties they have to face through. So he actually explains the different problems. But in this sloka, Narada Muni unveils or reveals the solution, or in other words, he offers the peace formula. So the beautiful purport by Srila Prabhupada, who has actually unveiled the treasure to us, so that we can understand the real message of Narada Muni. So I was reading through this purport repeatedly. I was trying to understand what is the message, key theme that I understood. The key theme in this shloka is the Prabhupada has emphasized on the importance of devotional service, especially constant devotion service. So we will actually dwell into the details of what is actually devotional service, especially what is constant devotional service. Why Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing on the constant devotional service. So Prabhupada actually starts this translation and purport with saying that how to get out of the cycle of birth and death. So he says this is the solution. So what is that solution? So one should actually take shelter under the one should take shelter under the spiritual master who is in the line of bona fide sampradaya, so that he can attain the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And under the direction of the spiritual master, one must perform the devotional service. So this is actually going to liberate oneself. So this is the solution that Prabhupada is, Narada Muni is offering. And let's see how Prabhupada actually unveiled this treasure to us. So what is actually shelter? So many times, actually, I have heard this word shelter. We should take the shelter of the senior Vaishnavas. We should take the shelter of the Lord. We should take the shelter of the Supreme Lord. So I was trying to understand what exactly the shelter means. So I just realized something. So I thought of sharing this here. So when I was traveling from the temple to home, suddenly it started raining. So I was going by scooter. So it started raining so heavily that I started becoming wet. So suddenly I was looking for a place where I can, save myself from the rain. So I stopped the scooter and then I got into the tea shop. So I was standing. There was a shelter available. I was standing inside that shed. So I was, protecting myself from rain, but still I was not fully comfortable. I was just looking around. So I saw some people who were sitting inside the house. They were sitting in a chair and they were very much relaxed. They were not really worried. I was worried because I was just standing in the shed. Though I was temporarily protected from the rain was getting heavier and heavier. So I was just wondering what will happen if the rain gets heavy, the road will be flooded. How can I reach home? What should I do? Like that. But when I saw the other people who are sitting inside the house, they were under shelter and they were actually very much relaxed. They didn't worry about the rain. They were just doing what they were doing. So that time I realized, oh, actually, this is the real meaning of shelter, what we keep hearing in the Bhagavatam class. So when we take shelter of a supreme, of the spiritual master who is in the bona fide sampradaya, we are actually under a real shelter because we don't need to worry like how we are under the inside the house when it is heavily raining, we don't worry about the rain, right? Similarly, when we are under the shelter of the spiritual master, we don't need to really worry about the pangs of the material world because as long as we follow the instructions of the spiritual master, we are very safe. We'll become fearless. So that's what I could understand theoretically what real shelter means. So here Srila Prabhupada says one should take the shelter. So Prabhupada says in his purport, the only remedy is to take Krishna consciousness and constantly engage in the devotional service of the Lord Vasudeva. So let's see what is actually, a devotional service and Krishna consciousness means from the lotus mouth of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada says in the purport later, Bhakti means activities performed in the service of Lord Vasudeva. And also Prabhupada emphasized one should constantly render devotional service. So what does this mean? Constant, actually. Why Prabhupada is emphasizing the word constant? We'll see that in a while. So we should always take up the devotional service because devotional service is very, very important for advancing ourselves in the spiritual life. It doesn't matter what service we take, whether it's big or small, it doesn't matter. But we should take one service at least and engage ourselves in that service continuously. So Prabhupada, he explains about the bhakti again, the purport. In the neophyte stage, one is advised to observe the rules and regulations, though one may not really want to do those, follow those rules and regulations willingly. But still, we actually, observe the rules and regulations because our spiritual master asked us to do so. Again, in the Bhagavad Gita 12.9, Prabhupada is little bit elaborating this specific aspect of performing devotionals, following the rules and regulations um, in the neophyte stage. So Prabhupada explains, to practice the regulative principles of bhakti yoga, one should, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, follow certain principles. One should rise early in the morning, take bath, enter the temple, offer prayers and chant Hare Krishna, then collect flowers to offer deity, cook foodstuff to offer to the deity and take prasadam and so on. So this is the basic principles that Srila Prabhupada is advising one who is under the neophyte stage should follow. Also, one should constantly hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam from pure devotees. So this process, when it is repeatedly done, helps anyone to rise from the neophyte stage gradually to the pure love of God. So here Prabhupada is offering the solution to the practicing devotees, especially to the sadhakas. So that's the first step. Being regulated in our devotional service is very, very important to gradually progress to the next level. So being regulated means we should actually accept a devotional service, and we should consistently and regularly perform that devotional service. That is actually a regulation. So it's not that we take up the devotional service once in a month or once in a quarter or once in a year, Janmashtami. Of course, that is better than not doing anything. But in order for us to progress further, we have to take up the devotional service. Um, we should own the devotional service, and we should regularly perform the devotional service. So that is actually going to help us in progress the devotional service. So how should we do the devotional service? So the easiest way to do the devotional service is in the association of devotees. We should perform the devotional service in the association of devotees all the time, because without association of devotees, there is no progress in the spiritual life. We know the story of Bharat Maharaj. He's such an exalted personality, but because of the lack of association, he has fallen down. And also we know the story of Ajamila, who because of a bad of association and because of momentary struggle with the mind, he actually has fallen. So that's why it's very important that we stay in the association of devotees, so that when we are deviating, the devotees will always correct us. Okay, so now we will see why constant engagement is needed, because Prabhupada is emphasizing on this specific aspect, constant engagement of devotional service. So I want to quote an analogy or example here. So when we are sick or when we are in a disease condition, we go to the doctor. The doctor prescribes some medicine. Let's say that I have a tuberculosis or a disease like typhoid. So when we go to doctor, the doctor does the diagnosis, and then he determines what is the disease for this patient, and then he prescribes this medicine along with diet. The doctor says that, okay, this is the diet and this is the medicine, and you have to take this medicine for 6 months or 1 year, like that. But you should also follow the diet. It's very important, because diet and medicine, they go together like two railway lines in the railway track. So doctor prescribes. So when the diseased person, if I take this medicine and regularly and follow the diet as prescribed by the doctor, then the symptoms of the disease what I have, it gradually disappears. So once I take the full dose, then my disease goes away. But if I stop the medicine when the symptoms start disappearing, then there is a very high chance that disease will come back again. So it is very important that we complete the dose prescribed by the doctor, and also we should follow the diet. It's very important. Similarly, in this material world, we are all in the disease condition, right? Because we are all entangled by 3 modes of material nature, and we are tormented by desires regularly, every moment. So the spiritual master, as an eternal doctor, he actually prescribes the medicine along with diet. The prescribed medicine is performing the devotional service, and we have to follow the regulative principle, which is the diet. So when we actually perform this devotional service in the following the regulative principles, gradually over a period of time, we will start seeing that the symptoms of the disease gradually go away from us. And when we practice this over a period of time, depending on how much intensity we put on, how much effort we put on, the disease will go away from us. So that is actually the importance of constant. Constant means we have to perform the devotional service regularly. So that is very important. So, okay, it's easy to say that, but we may come across so many extra obstacles, right? What is the biggest obstacle in performing the devotional service? The biggest obstacle when we perform the devotional service comes in the form of anarthas within our heart. The condition living at it is we want to be really happy, but we do not know what is the real happiness, or we do not know what is the self-interest that makes one happy. So in the Prabhupada talks about self-interest. So I was a little bit curious why Prabhupada is using the word self-interest. I actually digged into some other slokas and purport. So there Prabhupada, beautifully explained what does this mean. Actually, this self-interest, it's two words, self and interest, right? Depending on the conscious level of the conditioned soul, the interpretation of this word self-interest is vastly different. So if you ask somebody who is at the bodily platform, you ask what is self-interest? Oh, okay. That means self-interest means I need to satisfy my senses. I need to satisfy my body, keep my body in good health. That is self-interest. And little bit above, if you go to somebody who is in the mental platform, they will say, yeah, the self is the mind. So if I satisfy the mind, the whims of the mind, that is my self-interest. And then if you go to the another person who is little bit advanced, they may say that liberation of the self, attaining moksha, that is a self-interest. So that's that is actually the self-interest according to the maturity level. But the real self-interest is one should get away from the bodily conception. Bodily conception means we have to get away from the body, mind, and false ego and intelligence. We have to transcend beyond that and engage the real self. What is the real self? Bodily concept means I am the body or I am the mind. So that is the bodily concept. We have to transcend that. Beyond that, we should understand the real self is the Atma. What is Atma's constitutional position? Atma's constitutional position is so eternal servant of the Lord. So once who understand this, we should actually the real interest of the self will be to engage ourselves in the devotional service of the Lord. So that is the real self-interest. So one who understand what is the real self-interest, which is beyond the platform of body, mind, and false ego, he will understand that the real self is the Atma, and the real constitutional position of Atma to be the servitor of the Lord. And then what is the constitutional duty? It is to perform the devotional service. So that is the real self-interest of the condition of the living entity. So, okay, so now we know what is the real self-interest. So what is the obstacle again? I said the obstacles are anarthas. So where these anarthas are coming from? The anarthas are coming from our heart. Okay, where it is coming from? So it's coming from the desires. The mind actually is a desire is a function of the mind. Hundreds and thousands of desires kept on generating, right? We cannot stop the mind from generating desires. So what we should do? So what we should do is we have to purify the mind so that we have to engage the mind in the service of the Lord so that the mind is purified. So initially the desires are triggered by the impure mind because these desires are coming from millions and millions of our lifetime because these desires are all impregnated. So when a living entity moves from one body to another body, these desires also moves. So Prabhupada says, if you desire, if you want to enjoy the sense, like if somebody wants to be in the water and play in the water all the time, if that is a desire, okay, Krishna is so kind, okay, he will give the body of the fish. So in the next lifetime, you will become a body, you will become a fish. So like that, the desires are impregnate in our heart, and when one moves from one body to another body, the desire also moves. So like that, we keep on following the cycle of repeated birth and death. So what is the solution? One has to control the mind, but it is not so easy. What is the solution? So Prabhupada says again in Bhagavad Gita, like for a person who mind is the friend for whom who engages the mind in the service of the Lord, and mind is the enemy who is actually engaged in the sense gratification. So let's see the first aspect. When we say friend, what does it mean? How we can actually make our mind as a friend? If we actually understand the real self, we understand that the real self is Atma, and if, if we understood what is the real interest of the self, then we can actually the mind will become our friend. How the mind will become friend? We have to train our mind regularly. How to train the mind? There are multiple ways. One way is that we have to read the scriptures regularly and consistently. We have to study. I think read is not the right word. We have to study the scriptures regularly and consistently. So that is actually going to purify the mind. Whatever the anarthas that we have, those anarthas will gradually will go away when we are studying the scriptures. And also we have to take the association of the devotees. When we take the association of devotees, and when we see them, like when I say association, it doesn't mean that we say Hare Krishna to the devotees in the temple and then just chat for a few minutes. It's not that actually. We have to take a few devotees who are close to us and try to understand how they are progressing their Krishna consciousness in the spiritual life. What is their regulated lifestyle? And we should get inspiration from them and try to follow that in our life. So that way, when we are associating with them, and also we should actually share the challenges that we are facing in following the Krishna consciousness. So they will actually share their experience, and with that we can take guidance, we can gradually progress. So when we engage our mind, when we train our mind in reading the books, when studying the books, the mind gets purified. When we associate with the devotees, we get inspired from them. And similarly, when we perform devotional service, actually we please the Vaishnavas. We please our senior Vaishnavas when we perform devotional service. And through their blessing, we get the blessing of our spiritual master. And through that blessing, also our anarthas gradually goes away. So that's how actually we can actually engage the mind, and we can gradually purify our mind. And through that, our desires will be regulated. It's not possible to stop the desires completely, but we can dovetail our desires in the service of Krishna. So gradually over a period of time, we will be able to elevate our desires from the material consciousness to the spiritual consciousness. We would have seen in our life, like several years back, 10 or 15 years or 5 or 6 years, depending on when we took the Krishna consciousness in our life, we would have seen how our anarthas that were predominant prior to coming to Krishna consciousness, how the desires that were tormenting us before coming to Krishna consciousness has gradually gone away. It's not fully gone away because we are all in the conditioned state. We are still practicing sadhakas. But if we just see how it is, how we were 10 or 15 years back, how we are now, we will be able to see what are all the desires that we had and what are all the material desires that we had, and how our mind was tormented by these material desires. And now we would see that some or many of the desires would have gone away. So that is, the beauty of taking up Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada says we should have only one desire. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So that's the highest level. That is something, practicing sadhaka should always aspire to reach that level. But we should not be artificially trying to try to imitate the senior devotees, because they have come to the stage after practicing this regularly in a regulated way, in a very sincere way, right, after many years. So we should not artificially try to imitate and then fail, because we will not be able to reach that standard. So what we should try to do is, what is my level? Recognize and be cognizant of our own level and try to understand. And from there, we should start our journey. Gradually, we should try to get inspiration and follow that their footsteps. So I was reading the prayers of Kulasekara Alvar. So the acharyas, they actually deal with the mind in both positive and negative way. This specific sloka of Kulasekara Alvar is actually from the positive aspect. I like this very much, so I want to share this with the devotees. It's actually sloka number 11 from Mukunda Mala Stotra. Mabhir mandamano vichintya bahuda yamishchiram yatana naivami prabhavanti paparipavah swami nanushridaraha आलस्यं व्यपनीय भक्ति सुलभम ध्यायस्व नारायणं लोकस्य व्यसनापनदन करो लोकस्य व्यसनापनोदन करो दासस्य किं न क्षमः. The translation is like this: O foolish mind, stop your fearful feeling about the fearful fretting about the existence torments imposed by Yamaraja, extensive torments imposed by Yamaraja. How can your enemies, the sinful reactions you have accrued, even touch you? After all, is your master not the Supreme Lord, the husband of Goddess Shri? Cast aside all hesitation and concentrate your thoughts on Lord Narayana, whom one very easily attain through devotional service. What can the dispeller of the whole world's trouble not to do for his own servant? This is such a positive statement. And in the Srila Prabhupada's disciples, they explain, in a very positive mood, King Kulashekara reminds us that as long as we are under the protection of the Supreme All-Powerful Lord, no one can come to us. Even that which our sinful reactions would normally bring us. Lord Krishna orders Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, declare boldly, my devotee will never be vanquished. So this specific sloka, it gives such a positive affirmation to the path that we have taken up. And the acharyas, when we read Srila Prabhupada's book, though we are still in the conditioned state, this positive affirmation that we see in Prabhupada Purport or his disciples' lecture, that gives a lot of confidence, because what I personally felt is that the standard that was set by Prabhupada is so high. It's really difficult for us. Really difficult for us, because even, when we see the Prabhupada says that you are back home to God, it is guaranteed when you follow this, chant 16 rounds attentively. Where am I able to chant my rounds, attentively? The mind is tormenting us, right? Similarly, study the books. Okay, I read the books, I get sleepy, and be in the association of devotees. So when I'm in the association of devotees, I'm only find the faults. So sometimes, I get so despondent. So where is my progress? How I'm going to progress? But when we read the senior, the few devotees' prayers, and when we read, especially the purport of Prabhupada, it gives a lot of motivation and some inspiration. Okay, the standard is so high, we are here, but still there is a hope, because we are in the shelter of the Sampradaya. We are in the shelter of bona fide Sampradaya. So that is the hope we have. So what is the result of when we engage ourselves in constant devotional service? The constant devotional service will please the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas who have given the devotional service to us, when they see our endeavor, when they see that we are sincerely trying to fulfill their instructions, they will be pleased. When the Vaishnavas are pleased, our spiritual master will be pleased. When our spiritual master is pleased, obviously Krishna will be pleased. Krishna doesn't have a choice. When Prabhupada and our spiritual masters are pleased, Krishna will just fulfill their desire. So that's the result. And we don't need to, in the sloka, there are two words, right? Detachment and knowledge. We don't need to really work hard to develop this detachment and knowledge. Because when we follow the principles of devotional service, detachment and knowledge is just a byproduct which happens automatically. So we would have seen, again, I'm repeating this point, in our Krishna consciousness journey in the last so many years, you would have seen how many material attachments we would have given up. So when I started my journey in Krishna consciousness, giving up tea or coffee was really, especially tea, was really difficult. I thought it is impossible. But my Siksha Guru said, don't worry. You don't focus on not to do. Don't focus on don'ts. Just focus on do's. The focus is you chant 16 rounds. That will take care. And you come and, attend the class regularly. He asked me to just focus on that. And gradually, we see that I think that would be the case with most of us or all of us here. So without much effort, they have gone from our life. They are not a part of our life anymore. So similarly, when we follow the principles of devotional service, we will have similar experience. The detachment will gradually develop, the attachment to, material anarthas and bodily concept of life. All this will happen gradually, and the real knowledge will manifest. Okay, what is real knowledge? The real knowledge is, as Prabhupada has mentioned in the purport, I am the eternal servant of the Lord. In fact, I am dasanu dasanu dasa. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Jive Swarupa Nitya Krishna Das. That is the real knowledge. That real knowledge will manifest within our heart when we perform the devotional service regularly and consistently. So when we reach that stage is called the liberated stage. That's why the pure devotees, for them, it doesn't matter where they are, because wherever they go, they carry Krishna in their heart. The place where they are in, that becomes Vrindavan, because they are in such a pure state of consciousness. And because of their liberated stage, they are always in Krishna consciousness. The Krishna is always in their heart. The place wherever they go, that becomes Vrindavan. So I want to give a very small story on the importance of significance of consistency of devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada has actually quoted in his Lilamrita. Srila Prabhupada, Satsarup Goswami Maharaj actually quoted this in Prabhupada's Lilamrita. So when Prabhupada was living in Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, there was one lady who was actually bringing water. I think all of you may be knowing this story. So that old lady, she was bringing water from Yamuna to Radha Damodar temple. It's quite far, actually. It's not near. So she was bringing that every day morning, very early morning. She will bring that water and she will give that water for washing the temple and other services. So it's a very, from the material eyes, it may look like what's the difficulty? It's a small seva. But the important aspect of this service was that she was doing this service for 30 plus years, consistently without failing even for one day. So Prabhupada was observing that. He was telling that this lady is performing such a wonderful service, her back to home is guaranteed. So that is the importance of performing consistent devotional service. It doesn't matter what service we take up. It may be small or big. Let's see how we can actually practically apply this in our life. What is the practical application of this specific principle, constant devotional service? So actually, it doesn't matter, in what level of purity we are in. I may be, in Kanishta stage, I may be the neophyte devotee. My purity level may be very poor. It doesn't matter. What is important is that we have to take up one devotion service at least. So our grand temple is coming up and we will be inaugurating the temple sometime very soon in next 2 or 3 months. So there are going to be so many service opportunities. It's a big opportunity for us. We should grab it with both the hands. It's not that we should take up so many services and overwhelm ourselves and not able to, focus on them. Instead of taking up too many services, let's understand what is our bandwidth, because we have a family to take care. We have our regular sadhana to take care, and looking at our bandwidth, looking at our real condition position, we should see what is that practically we can do. We have to actually, when there is a goal set in the corporate world, they will stretch a goal such that we stretch a little bit beyond our comfort zone. So similarly, we have to take up a service, 1 or 2 hours, no, as much as which is within our capability. We have to take up the service, which is little bit stretching beyond our comfort zone. So we have to take up that service and continuously or constantly perform at that service. For example, one may take up the service of, we have so many devotees who are here, who are already doing that. I may not be the one, I am the one who may not be doing that, but there are so many devotees. I see those devotees, they are doing the service regularly for past 10 or 12 years. For example, Dayamai Prabhu is always engaged in Prasadam service. Whenever we see him, coming to temple on Sunday, okay, Dayamai Prabhu is in, Prasadam Seva. So similarly, we have other devotees. We have our Gaurchanda Gopinath Prabhu. Every year, throughout the year, his focus on distributing Prabhupada books is amazing. So similarly, recently I started going to temple for some assistance in the DT room. I see how intensely our Grace Murali Murari Prabhu is performing the DT Seva. It gives such an inspiration. So we have lot of living examples who are actually living by these principles. So they are already following this. I'm just repeating for myself so that I can, reach their level at some point of time. So they have been doing this service for so many years, consistently and regularly. And what is the purpose? It doesn't matter, I'm an advanced devotee or, I'm a senior devotee or I'm a junior devotee. We should take up one service. We should continuously focus on this service. The purpose of all these devotees who are in different stage is to please Krishna, is to please our spiritual master. That is the purpose. It's my purpose to please Krishna, or it is my purpose to please the senior Vaishnavas, spiritual master, and eventually Krishna will be pleased. And that's the purpose of the other senior devotees as well. So it doesn't really matter what service we take, but we have to take up some service which is to our capability and perform that service regularly and sincerely. And when we do this, and also we should start contemplating how we can gradually improve the service so that we can please Guru, our senior Vaishnavas, Guru and Krishna. This hierarchy is very important because many times our Guru may not be near us. It's only the senior Vaishnavas who are near us who can correct us. So this hierarchy is important. So we should contemplate on how we can improve this service. What improvements are needed? In corporate world, we have something called as continuous improvement service, right? Similarly, we have to look for improvement opportunities when we are performing this service, and we should meditate ourselves. Okay, I am doing this service like this, I can do like this, and this is the important improvement opportunity. Then take that improvement opportunity and discuss with the senior Vaishnavas and see how we can implement it. And then we should gradually do this. So when we do this with our consistent endeavor, with attention, focus, fully engaged on this, and with the right attitude, when we perform these services, this will lead to gradual elimination of anarthas from our heart. Such, it's not only our effort, but seeing our endeavor, our sincerity, the senior Vaishnavas will be certainly pleased. And when they are pleased, our spiritual master will be pleased, and Srila Prabhupada will be pleased, and Krishna will be pleased. So, such consistent effort to perform and improve our services that we own is actually the real devotional service, and that's actually the real surrender. So that's what I see as the important lesson or important practical application that we can apply in our life from this specific perspective. So I think we are close to the end of the class. The summary. So we saw what is devotional service, and especially we saw what is constant devotional service, how one can actually perform devotional service, and what is self-interest, and what is the obstacles in performing devotional service, and how we can overcome these obstacles. And also we saw a small story from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, And also we saw the positive affirmation of Kulasekara Alvar's prayer in Mukundamala Stotra that emphasize the importance of devotional service and staying fearless, because we have taken the shelter of Lord Hari. And when we do this, what is the result? Because being a conditioned soul, we always want to know what is the result, right? So what is the result when we do this consistently? We also saw that, but also finally we saw what is the practical application. So with this, I would like to end the presentation. Hare Krishna devotees, I might have committed many offenses. I know that I have spoken beyond my level, beyond my realization. I request forgiveness if I have committed any offenses. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, thank you very much for the wonderful explanation on the theme of this 2 verses, constant devotional service. How unless we are like really consistent in our devotional service, we can't really achieve that love for Godhead. Thank you very much for reminding us. Devotees can unmute themselves to share reflections, or if they have any questions, please ask. Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavats Pranam Prabhu. Please
Hare
and
Krishna,
Dharma Prabhu, can
Mataji.
you repeat it once again? Yes, Prabhu. Can you hear
Sorry,
me, Prabhu?
Mataji. Yes, Mataji, I can hear you, Mataji.
The hierarchy of the 3 ways we glorify, one is senior devotees, one is Vaishnava, and one more you said, please tell it in the hierarchy, Prabhu.
Hierarchy is that, we have a authority, right, Mataji? We may be having Shiksha Guru in the temple, or we may be having a mentor, or we may be having our Bhakti Vriksha leader. So they are our immediate leaders. They are the senior Vaishnavas whom we report to. That's the first stage. So when we please them, our spiritual master will be pleased. When spiritual master is pleased, Srila Prabhupada will be pleased. And when Prabhupada is pleased, obviously Krishna will be pleased. That's the hierarchy, Mataji. We cannot directly contact Krishna. We don't have that, qualification.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat pranams to you.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, very nice class. So very wonderful. Very nicely you connected, brought out so many points, especially the essence of what Prabhupada wants to say.
Please bless me, Prabhuji, so I can follow what I said.
So very nice, Prabhu. All of us are the same boat. Now, actually, I like the point that you were talking about with respect to self interest, and then how you connected it to the consciousness of different individuals, and how you connected it to the different kleshas, the coverings that are there. So that was very nice. So thank you so much, Prabhu. Just wanted to mention that. Yeah.
I just repeated what I read in Prabhupada's book. Nothing went in Prabhupada, but it was very nice. That specific, I was wondering why that self-interest is used. That was really interesting word.
Yeah. Hari Hari.
Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna, Sankarshan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Wonderful, wonderful. So nice.
All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, Prabhu. There is one committed service you are doing last at least 3 years about Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Really glorious to you, Prabhu. Thank you.
No, not me, Prabhuji. We have 5 people. We have,
You are, brain behind, you are man behind the show. Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Another devotee assigned to me. I'm trying to fulfill with support of all devotees. We have Ravi Lochana Prabhu, Sri Bhagavat Prabhu, Venkatramana Prabhu, yourself. So all of us, all of you are helping. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sankarshan Prabhu. Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna, Sri Balaji Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Wonderful class, and definitely lot of learnings, lot of lines. Please pray that I remember that and act on it, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Please
Prabhuji.
pray.
Mutual prayers. I also need your prayers, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna,
Pranam.
Thank you for the wonderful class today. And I 2 things I liked it very much in terms of which, get it out of my head a little bit, I would say is, one is the self-interest. Like I think Prasad Balraparam highlighted it, that was one which was really thought-provoking from a point of view of understanding also. Other one is you explain the nice thing of a shelter, how you could from your analogy say, what a self-shelter is, what it is. It's very important because several times we say shelter, and it becomes lip service shelter. for me, it's a learning that, I have to mean what when we walk the talk, not just saying shelter, but we have to follow the instructions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
Hare
Jai
Krishna,
Mai Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I would like to share my service, Prabhuji. It is like a squirrel service in construction of a bridge. But there are so many devotees who are round the clock working, means doing service in the temple. So I would like to really thank the entire temple management and team who are working round the clock. My service is really like a squirrel service, Prabhuji. Please pray for me, so that at least I will continue doing this very little service. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam. Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Rama Prabhu, Lord is equally pleased for the squirrel and the Hanuman.
Exactly. Exactly, Prabhu. Hanuman, squirrel, both of them were building Ram Setu, but Dad was looking both of them at the same level.
But mine is a very little contribution, Prabhuji. Very, very little contribution I wanted to state.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Sankarshan Prabhu.
Thank you, Anugapa Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Constant, consistent service that you are highlighting, examples you give, that was very wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. What all you people, the service which you are doing, we get motivated, but I'm unable to do any little service. But whenever I come, something is there, I just grab and then do it. Let me see, Prabhu, how Krishna will make me use in his service. Very wonderful, Prabhu. You're
Thank
all.
you, Mataji.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Your point about applying all what you mentioned, corporate, but I think those principles are very much relevant, and constant improvement and consistent, all those points. I think, we need to keep hearing, so that we are not just fixed on just doing the service, but also how to enhance as we are growing.
Yes,
We
Prabhu.
may be stuck in old ways.
Yeah, that's very much for me, Prabhuji. Prabhuji was telling about this, but I need to really see how we can improve this Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya in wholesome, so that we can attract more devotees who can attend the class on a regular basis. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
No, I think that's relevant to every service.
Yeah, Prabhu.
Thank you for the reminders. Thanks.
Sri Bhagavat Prabhu, I think.
Yes, Prabhuji, we can conclude. I think we'll conclude with Vaishnava Pranams. Vancha
Kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhom jayevasya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namaha. Granthara ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you again for your time, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for the opportunity.
We'll conclude here today and we'll meet again tomorrow.